This is a 12-volt air compressor. Now, I fabricated a bracket so that I could mount this compressor under my truck, connect it to the battery, run a hose, install a regulator, so I can fill up my tires or use air tools as needed. So yeah, I'm installing this guy on this guy, and it's going to be awesome. Let's get right into it. Now, I'm going to lay everything out. Obviously, I have the compressor. We have some tape. You can see I've got a meter, zip ties, bolts, washers, nuts. I'm nuts for nuts, and I got the fitting, the regulator, bag of hand tools, and a plate of steel. I'm going to cut that plate of steel in half, chop it up, snip it together. You'll see everything, don't worry. And so I got the wiring harness. Now, full disclosure, I've installed this air compressor on a different truck. And so I kind of already had it set up, and the wiring was prepped. And I'm going to get rid of this switch. Now, I'm going to have to extend the wiring because I have switches already built into the truck. But you can see it's already got the fuse. It's got these clips. Those leads go straight onto the air compressor. That turns it on. And it's a limiter switch on that as well. It's going to be a slow-paced video because I wanted to kind of show every step, because it's really not just plug and play. Unless you want to drill holes into your truck, into the body or in the frame, I prefer to have things bolt on. Unfortunately, in this case, I didn't have all of my tools set up in my shop, so I am doing this on a job site. And because of that, I don't have my welder, plasma cutter, anything set up. I had to kill the whole day and figured, why not, instead of sitting around, let me go ahead and install this compressor on the truck. So I was ill-prepared, but I had a few tools in my truck, so I was able to come up with an idea. I'd get some plate steel from Home Depot and make my own bracket. But unfortunately, they do not carry thicker plate steel, and I was very far away from a supply house and did not want to drive an hour. So I decided to get the thin plate, cut it in half, and squish it to the other one, so essentially I'm doubling it up. Now keep in mind, you're watching the way that I'm running this grinder. Now when you're using a cutoff wheel, you want to let the grinder do its job. You don't want to force it. That's especially dangerous on these thin cutoff wheels because you can blow them up and explode into your face. I've seen it happen. So if you're going to do this and you want to run a straight line, you kind of let the grinder dance and work its way. You see the wheel's spinning away from you, and so it's going to constantly jump up. But if you lightly handle that thing, man, you can get a straight line. Maybe I should do another video on how to cut straight lines with angle grinders. Man, that cut ended up nice and straight. I've learned a lot of tips and tricks over the years, most of them by messing up, and the majority of them also by doing things the harder and the slower way. Now, of course, there are a few safety aspects of this job that I wouldn't suggest a novice do. For instance, I swap out the blades with my hand, I don't use a tool, and I don't remove the battery. I have been doing this long enough where I will not accidentally pull the trigger and cut my hand off. But if you have an older tool, or it's possible that it doesn't have a safety and you can slip and cut yourself, yeah, take out the battery, unplug the tool, and go ahead and swap the blades. Now, when it comes to grinding the edge of steel, it is an art. And so if you can do long passes without putting much pressure and let the grinder do its job, you'll get a nice smooth finish. Now you see how I'm manipulating the piece of steel, but keeping the grinder pretty steady. Because the steel is easy to move left and right in that circular motion. The grinder, keeping that stable because it's a heavier moving object, allows me to get a nice smooth flush finish, and I can round off those corners so they're not sharp and they don't scratch off paint or scratch off my skin, which seems to happen a lot these days. I guess the older you get, the less rubbery you are. I used to bounce back from falls like I was a bouncy ball. Anywho, so I'm going to be using some spray glue, and this is just to hold the two pieces together so when I drill the holes, I can just go through both of them at the same time, and they'll all end up in the same place. Hopefully it sticks together the whole entire time I'm working on it. Again, I would have preferred a little bit thicker steel. They didn't have it at the time, so this works, honestly. Maybe it helps dampen the vibration. So I found this spot under the truck, It was a perfect location. I found 2 holes that go into that sub-brain. I guess that's a cross member. And it kind of hides and protects the air compressor behind the transfer case. It's a really good location. It'll stay nice and cool. Now, these compressors, if I'm not mistaken, are waterproof or very water resistant. So it's not a big deal that it's out and exposed. Now, in my other truck, I mounted it inside of the cab behind the back seat. And I learned quickly that if you have passengers or anyone in the truck while it's running, it's really loud and annoying. And I did like that it was protected from the elements, but at the same time, these things are built really well. So that's just a side note. It is a little bit loud, so having it on the outside of the truck is nice. So this is going to be a temporary bracket. I don't care too much because I'm going to end up fabricating something in my shop when I have more time, and it'll have some bushings on it, so it'll help dampen the vibration and the sound as well. Here I'm just marking the location of the holes based on the holes that were on the frame of the truck, on that cross member. That way I can bolt it in, do my thing, and bolt it off when I ever decide to maybe fabricate the proper plate. This is an important thing, and I want everybody to pay attention here. This is called Nix Sticks. This is a cutting compound. It's essentially a lube, and what it does is lubes the bit and cools it. So that way, I don't know if you've ever seen like in a machine shop or in CNC shops, when you're looking at, and also some automated drill presses, you'll see that they are constantly spitting lube or oil or water onto the bit while they're cutting into the steel. Not only does it keep it cool, but it oils it, and that oil prevents the type of friction that would dull the bits or the blades. Because you can have a hardened steel drill bit, but as soon as that hardened steel drill bit gets hot, because you didn't oil it, didn't cool it, you'll dull it. So if you don't have a cutting compound, you can use WD-40. If you're really desperate, you can use water. I prefer to lube and cool at the same time. I mean, that's what the CNC shops use. That's what any parts manufacturer or anybody who works with metal will tell you. Keep it oiled, keep it lubed, keep it cool, and you will not dull your drill bits. I mean, I've drilled through half-inch thick steel with the same quarter-inch drill bit over and over and over again, but I always keep it lubed and I always keep it cool. Anyway, that's a really important tip. So this is pretty self-explanatory. I bolted that plate up to the frame. Now I have some place I can drill more holes into instead of drilling holes into the truck. Now I'm going to put it exactly where I want it and kind of make sure that it's not blocking anything, that when the hose comes out, it's not going to hit any lines. And I'm going to mark the base of the compressor on that plate steel. And by doing this, I'll make sure that I'm lined up and I won't hit anything. And, you know, I'll put a couple of marks there on the left side of the plate so that I can tell exactly where the frame and that body panel is. That way, when I drill through and I put the bolts, it's not going to end up hitting anything. All right. Now let's remove the base. We're going to be removing the base from the compressor. And, you know, I'm taking a lot of extra steps here just because when I do things temporarily, they kind of end up being permanent until it breaks. Like, I say that I'm going to be replacing this bracket and fabricate something with bushings and all that, but if it's working, why am I going to change it? That's one of those things, you know? Everything's temporary until it becomes permanent. So I'm going to drill these holes. I've got my high-strength steel drill bit. I'm going to go ahead and lube it up. Use that Nix Sticks. I'll leave a link in the description for some cutting compounds. I'm going to go ahead and drill these holes. Now, when you don't have a drill press, it's a lot harder to drill through steel. So let me give you some hints. Number one, you want to use it oil lube. We talked about that. Number two, you're going to put the drill on the slowest speed. So if you have the option 1, 2, 3 on your drill, 1 is going to be the slowest, 3 is going to be the fastest. The next most important thing is you want to put a lot of pressure. Now, please keep in mind, you can see in this video, see how this guy's spinning around? When you put a lot of pressure, your bit can grab. And once it grabs, it can throw that piece of steel, spin it, and you can break a wrist. And I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's actually, I mean, I've personally been injured many times by this. So I didn't have any clamps on me, so I just went ahead and stepped on the piece. I'm putting a lot of pressure on that drill. You want to be careful on thinner drill bits because you put a lot of pressure like that, you can easily break it while you're spinning it. Anyway, slow, even pressure, lubricate, cool, slow speed. And you can drill through metal. I've had drill bits for years, gone through tons of steel. It's really not that big of a deal. It's a little bit harder on stainless steel. You want to keep it extra cool, but mild steel like this, easy. Well, after I finished drilling those 4 holes, I realized since I've got 2 layers of thin steel, I could probably just smack these bolts in with a hammer and that carriage square portion will lock in. And lo and behold, it worked really well. So I don't know if this saved me a step or it added more work for me because I later then had to cut the ends of these carriage bolts. But either way, it was kind of a cool little experiment, essentially creating a fixed bolt. This is something that I would do with a regular bolt, and then I could just tack weld the heads of those bolts on the other side. That way I can, use a hidden nut and I don't have to hold on to the head of the bolt. So in this case, it worked perfectly fine. Just wanted to test fit to make sure the bottom portion of that compressor, that bracket fits on. It looks good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and paint this thing. Now, please, do not judge my paint job because I was rushing to get this done. I was on a job site. I didn't have all my tools. And I literally found this can of spray paint in the corner of the garage, half used, and hey, it worked. I don't really care what it looks like because it's going to be under the truck. It's probably going to rust after a while, and like I said, I'm going to be replacing it soon, right? Yeah, sure. It's going to be permanent, so I wanted to put some paint on it. So here, again, coming to the grinder, like grinders can be very dangerous. You can see how close my fingers are to that blade. I've been cutting things with grinders for, 20 years, and I probably did a lot of dangerous stuff in the first 10 years, and I have had serious cuts, and I've messed myself up with an angle grinder. So don't try this at home. There's your disclaimer. Use proper safety gear. It's probably best to keep the guard on to protect yourself from the blade, because grinders can catch and jump. Once they jump right into your hand in the most inconvenient place. And it's not fun. You wanted to paint something white, you might end up painting it red because you didn't use the grinder properly. And then you got to clean up all the tools and then pack it up because you can't keep working because you cut your finger off. And you got to go to the hospital, and now they can't reattach your finger. So when you're at parties or you're at a bar and you meet someone new, they're like, "How'd you lose your finger?" And you don't even have a cool story. Anyway, be safe. Don't try that at home. Use the angle grinder guard. Okay, enough of my babble. So I'm going to be installing the compressor now onto that base plate. That is going to be installed onto my custom plate, let's call it. Let's call it my temporary bracket. And once I install this guy onto my temporary bracket, I'm going to go down up under the truck and make sure that it fits, make sure it lines up well. And if all goes well, I'm just going to go ahead and bolt this thing right up. I love doing little projects like this, and ever since I was young, I've always wanted to add accessories to my vehicles. I've owned a lot of vehicles, quite a few actually. Probably, I think last time I counted was like over 50. That's not including motorcycles or or trailers. I had a jet ski once, a stand-up ski and a sit-down ski. Gosh, I got them for like $300. It's because the engine wasn't running. And the stand-up ski was a lot of fun. I rebuilt that engine and got it going. It's kind of like a dirt bike on water. That was really fun. Anyway, the point of the story is I've owned a lot of vehicles, mostly very cheap ones. And, I've always put my touch on all of them, whether it's an air compressor or lights, or, just like building custom toolboxes to fit everything in. I love customizing things. I personally think that car manufacturers should focus more on organization in the center console, adding an air compressor on trucks, or SUVs that are supposed to be meant to be taken off road. How are you going to lower your air pressure if you don't have an air compressor to fill it back up? It'd be really cool to have an onboard air compressor, let's say like in a Toyota 4Runner TRD, or maybe they have them. I don't know. I know some car companies have that air compressor that you can plug into your 12-volt outlet inside the car, but you're not going to be pulling any substantial amount of power. And for off-road rigs that have 35-inch tires or 37s, you're probably going to be there all day, and you're probably going to blow fuse about 18 times per minute. So, no, I think a high-powered air compressor should be mounted on vehicles like this. It'd be really cool. I mean, it'll be an add-on, when you're building the vehicle. Extra $1,000 for air compressor. Yes. Extra $1,000 for TRD emblem on the side. Yes. Gotta look cool, because practicality ain't gonna pay the bill. Well, actually, maybe it will. So wiring this thing up is pretty easy. There is a cutoff switch. Sometimes it's called a cut-in or a cut-out switch, or a pressure switch. Pressure. So this pressure switch, or cut-in or cut-out switch, what it does is it senses the amount of air pressure in the line, or if you had like a house compressor, it would be on the tank. So when the compressor kicks on, you've got a closed contact on the pressure switch. Once there's enough pressure inside of the compressor, it will click and it will open that contact. And so that switch will no longer be connecting your two wires together. Now, once you hit 90 psi, or in this case, I think this compressor is at 120 psi, it will kick off or cut off. Once you start using some of that air and that pressure goes down, 110, 100, hits 90 psi, this compressor clicks back on. And so that way, you don't overload the compressor with too much pressure. It has a sensor that cuts it off when it needs to be cut off. Your second failsafe is a fuse. Now that fuse detects current going to the compressor. So if you're over pressure and that cutoff switch did not cut it off, it will pull way too much power and that fuse will blow. This is a smaller gauge wire that goes to the control switch. So when you flip it on or off, it goes to a relay and then sends that high power, that high voltage, high amperage, which goes through these two wires. Pretty sure it's a 10 gauge stranded. And unfortunately for me, it wasn't long enough, and I didn't want to splice the wires right now. So I jumped to the back, and I went ahead and got started on mounting my regulator in the location that I wanted it. Now you need a regulator on a compressor because let's say you're using an air tool. Let's say I'm using my finish nail gun. I didn't have my compressor that day, and I'm in a bind, and I need to use this compressor on my truck. Well, I'm going to want to set that regulator to 90 psi. This compressor goes up to 120 psi. If I shot 120 psi in my finish nailer, those nails would blow right through, and it would not be a good finished product. Also, if you're filling up the tires on your truck, for instance, you don't want to have that set to 120 psi. You want to have it set down to, let's say, 60 or 80 psi. Or if you've got an off-road rig, let's say you want to set it to 20 psi. That way, you don't have to guess that you're over inflating anything, because the air coming out is not just at a crazy pressure. I mean, imagine filling up a basketball and you don't have a regulator and you're hoping that when you blow 120 psi into that ball for half of a second, it'll fill it up just enough. No, you want to regulate that air and make sure there's not too much pressure. Now, I use this type of Teflon tape. It's super wide, it's super strong. You only need like 2 or 3 winds. And, I use this on water, oil, gas, air. I guess air is a gas. But you get the picture. This is really good stuff. I think it's called Blue Monster. I can leave a link in the description as well for this. I put this little cap on because I was going to be shoving it through the frame area. I didn't want to get any dirt or debris on those threads. Once I go back up under the truck, I'm going to be popping that little cap off because I want to thread this guy into my manifold. This is where the air is going to be coming out. So to see a little bit better and more clearly, I moved that plastic protector. Here's a really cool trick. All right, take notes. If you're going to do something like this in a confined space, pre-twist your hose and watch closely. The hose twists itself in a forward motion and then it catches the threads of the manifold. That way you're not fighting it trying to twist this guy into the manifold and the hose is just spinning around in the opposite direction and you're fighting it. And it's funny because you could twist a hose into a manifold like this. As soon as you let go, it's just going to untwist itself and pop out. So that's a cool little trick. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. It doesn't have to be too tight. As long as, the threads are engaging and you use a little bit of muscle, that thing will be nice and tight and not have any leaks. And even if it does have a little tiny leak here, I mean, that little compressor is going to be running while you're using it no matter what. So I did leak test it. Everything looked good after. Made sure that my wiring looks good. And here she is, fully installed, wired, and the hose is attached. Now the next part of the job is running the hose along the frame rail. And I found a couple of good spots I wanted to run it through. These hoses you can actually get at Harbor Freight Tools or on Amazon. They sell remnants. And these are cutoffs from the factory. They are really cheap. I think they're like $10 or like $8. Comes with the threaded male and female end as well. I think they're actually both 3/8 male. So I got this regulator from Harbor Freight as well. It's going to be outside. This regulator is going to take some damage. It's going to be getting pelted with rocks. It's going to be hit with salt, ice, snow, rain, everything. That's why I opted to get a cheaper one. Now, in the future, because this is what I do, I like to do things temporarily, but also permanently. I will be installing a regulator and the outputs inside of the bed. And I'm going to do that because I want to have it protected after a couple seasons of snow and ice and salt and rain and rocks. This thing is probably going to seize up and it's not really going to work very well. But again, at least for the time being, and at least maybe 1 to 2 years, I will have a regulator and I will have air on the truck. And that's all I care about. If it takes 6 hours to do something perfectly and you never have the time, then you never get it done. But if it takes you 2 hours to do something that still works but is not perfect, you get it done and you actually get to enjoy it. So in this pursuit of perfection, I've learned that when you shoot for perfection, you don't really ever get anything done. You have to just start doing it. You have to try. I've caught myself staring in the shop, on job sites, just looking at something like, God, it's not going to work out. How am I going to do it? It has to be perfect. I need new parts. I need new tools. I need this. I need that. Honestly, the most important lesson I've learned over the last year is just let it go. Get it done. I've spent so much time trying to get everything perfect. And little did I know, perfection stands in the way of getting anything done. Perfection also stands in the way of success. I think because you're going to have to fail. You're going to have to try. You're going to have to fail. You can't succeed unless you fail. So if you think that you're just going to become successful in whatever it may be, it's not going to happen. You have to try and you have to fail. Yeah, that's my story for the day. All right, get back to the video, dude. So I'm installing the regulator now. At this point, I have a bunch of holes in the frame. This is where the hitch comes down. So this is the hitch, not the frame, I guess. I did not want to drill any holes into the vehicle, and I wanted to make sure that everything was removable and didn't damage anything. So another thing, since this is temporary, but permanent, but temporary, I'm going to be installing a tank. I have a really cool 5-gallon accessory tank, and it is going to be mounted probably up underneath the truck. There's one spot on the driver or on the passenger side. It's like a big open area in between the frame and the body. And I want to mount that tank up underneath there so that this air compressor can actually be utilized for more than just tires and smaller air tools. You see, this thing's got a good CFM, but since it doesn't have a lot of volume, because it's so tiny and there's no tank, you can't really shoot a framing nail gun or expect to get things done quicker. You know, like if you want to blow yourself off, let's say you're super dusty at the end of the day, it works, but you have to let the pressure build up, spray yourself, then wait. Let it build up, spray yourself, and then wait. So I'm going to be installing a 5-gallon accessory tank on this thing, pre-regulator, and that tank will allow me to be able to use bigger tools and blow off for a longer period of time. And it'll just be nice because since that'll be full all the time, I don't have to kick on the compressor and I'll have plenty of air. So if I need to shoot a couple nails or if I need to blow myself off and I don't click on the air compressor, that 5-gallon tank will have enough air to blow my entire body off, no problem, at a good pressure. And if I need to, I can kick the compressor on, but that's the goal, the future goal. So yeah, temporary but permanent, and that's the final phase of this install. I've also got airbags on my suspension, and the airbags in the back help when I'm towing pretty heavy loads. Now, this is a heavy-duty truck, and the springs are great, but sometimes you need that little extra carrying capacity. So I installed airlift airbags that go in between the axle and the frame. And depending on what you're towing and when you're towing, you don't want to have these bags all the way filled up because the ride will be so freaking stiff. You're going to get jostled more than a heavy duty truck already jostles you. But if you're towing something, you need to be able to fill up, right? And you're not going to go stop at a gas station every time you need to fill up your airbags because you're now towing something heavy. And then once you drop off that heavy load, you're going to want to let the air out. So every way I look at this, whether you're filling up tires, whether you're filling up airbags in the suspension, you can see on the top right of the screen right now, I've got those 2 ports. One's for the left side, one's for the right side. In the end, having air on your truck is really amazing. Side note about those 2 ports, I have the left and right airbags separate from each other, mainly because I may have a heavier load on the left or right side of the bed, or if one airbag starts to lose pressure, I'll be able to tell which one it is. If they're both connected, then I'm not going to know which one is leaking, and it's going to be a lot harder to figure it out. Okay, now we're going over to the wiring. So I had to extend this wire. It is stock 10-gauge stranded wire, and I went ahead and got some more 10-gauge stranded wire. I soldered the connection together. I used double shrink wrap to make sure that it's insulated well. And after that, I put some expanding fabric sheathing, I think they call it. I'll leave the link down in the description as well. It gives such a nice professional finish. I was so excited when I first found it. I was like, wait, I didn't know this existed. I'll show you. Click the link in the description. It'll take you to Amazon. And the sheathing is really cool. Like you can expand it. See, as I'm doing, I'm kind of expanding it and pushing it on the tip of the wire. And I can just push it on. It gives you such a clean, professional look. And it looks way better than just electric tape on your wires. It also looks better than split loom, because split loom is that plastic sheathing that has like a split down the middle that you kind of shove onto the wire. But that just kind of looks bulky, right? Now for this sheathing that I have here, it's really smooth and it goes on and it tightens up as you pull. So that looks like a stock wire loom, and I'm really proud of the way that it turned out. All I have to do after this is hook it up to my switch. Now I have these switches that are already built into the truck. So all I have to do is do that low voltage positive to my switch and then connect the higher amperage, thicker wire, higher amperage straight to the battery. Now I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my compressor hose, a nice little coil hose I keep in the back, flip that switch on, compressor's running, I can finally fill up my tire, and the truck's going to stop yelling at me saying that I have low pressure. This is really cool to have. There are so many good things that come from it. Now look at this. I don't even have to connect a hose. I can just put in my tire chuck. Chuck or chalk? Probably a chuck. The chuck. Oh, there's my airbags. I think a chalk goes on the tire to prevent it from rolling forward, and a chuck allows you to fill up the tire with air. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, or share the video to a knucklehead that needs this.